Hey, what's up guys, it's Yuma here back with another video. Today I will be showing you how to kill Helwyr. Now just a quick reminder, like with any other video, anything in this guide is just recommendations, so if you have anything slightly different like equipment loadout or inventory setup, that's totally fine. This is just what I've been using to kill the boss, so yeah, without wasting any more time, let's get into it. So Helwyr has a total of 200,000 life points. If you do the hard mode, then it's 300,000. A 80 plus magic to enter the boss fight, and a 40 Serenus kill count to enter as well, but I will show you that later on in the video. So a few recommendations before we start. So I recommend a 80 plus combat, defense and 71 plus prayer, 96 plus herbal for overloads, 80 plus weapon and armor to defend yourself and deal enough damage. If your prayer level isn't high enough, then I recommend a melee protection prayer, but if not, then I recommend soul split. Some super potions if you don't have the herbal level for overloads, such as Warmaster. A damage boosting familiar, such as a Calgarian Demon, Steel Titan, War Tortoise, Ripper Demon, something like that. And this boss is poisonable, so I do recommend bringing along something like Cinderbane gloves and some weapon poison, just to increase your DPS. Now onto the different attacks this boss does. Now Helwyr does 5 different attacks, and I will talk you through them individually just to give you a better understanding before we go into the boss fight. Now the first attack Helwyr does is a mechanic called Aid of Nature. So Helwyr sends 3 balls of energy around a room, causing 3 mushrooms to grow in size and emit poison gas in a 5x5 AoE, so a 5x5 area. Getting caught in the gas will deal up to 250 hard typeless damage every tick and reduce the player to walking speed if their run is on, so you just don't want to stand in the poison. And if the player is in the gas cloud for more than 4.2 seconds, then they will also be bound for 2.4 seconds, which just means you can't move for 2.4 seconds. So if you are stuck in this gas cloud, I recommend you run or walk away, or you can use the surge ability. If you are bound and you can't move, then use the freedom ability, and then just walk or run, or use the surge ability to escape. So the next mechanic Helwyr does is just an auto attack, and Helwyr bites and claws at the player. It does not add any bleed stack, so I recommend you just using protect from melee or deflect melee. If your prayer level is high enough, then soul split. He will do this attack if he is not performing any other mechanic, so it's just his normal standard auto attack. The next mechanic Helwyr does is an ability called Rake and Rend, and Helwyr stands upright and cleaves the area in front of him in a cone radius. Players caught in the clawed attack will be hit up to 3000 damage and then be inflicted with 1 bleed stack. The bleed starts off at a base of 50 soft typeless damage every 2 ticks, and the more bleed a player takes, another 50 is added, up to a total of 250. The bleed lasts for 27 seconds, but will be prolonged if the player is inflicted with another bleed stack before the first expires. Now there's a few things you can do during this. You can continue to deflect melee or protect from melee. You can run in any direction, like through him, to avoid the attack altogether. But what I recommend you do is use the resonance ability just as he's performing this attack, and you will gain health instead of taking damage. I will show you how to do that later on in the video. The next mechanic Helwyr does is called the Thrash mechanic, and Helwyr leaps over a nearby player and begins a frenzy of clawing attacks. This will deal rapid melee damage for up to 1800 every 2 ticks, and each hit will add a bleed stack, up to 5 bleed stacks in total. The bleed deals 50 soft typeless damage per stack, up to a cap of 250 again, every 2 ticks for 27 seconds. Now again, there is a few things you can do during this mechanic. The first thing is to continue deflect melee or protect from melee. And if you're using this prayer option, you can use the devotion ability to block all damage during this phase. If you're using soul split, then I recommend you use Debilitate ability, and that just basically halves the damage for the duration of his attack. You can simply just run out of the 2 square hit radius he's performing this attack, and you won't deal any damage. Then once he's finished, then just go back into the fight. And I would recommend you save your freedom ability from Rake and Rend and use it during the Thrash mechanic. Because if you use it during Rake and Rend, then you get rid of the bleed from that, but when Helwyr uses it during the Thrash mechanic, then you won't be able to get rid of it because it will be on cooldown. So just use it after he's done the Thrash mechanic just to get rid of 2 bleed stacks. Now the last mechanic Helwyr does is just summon 2 of these Alpha Wolves, and they both have 3000 life points and deal little damage, but should be killed to prevent them sniping the residence heals from Helwyr's bleed attack. Should the Alphas remain alive when Helwyr uses the Aid of Nature attack, he will spawn 6 balls of those mushroom clouds instead of 3. Now just a little side note, the Alphas don't die off immediately as soon as Helwyr is killed. They stick around for around 3 seconds before doing so you can gain some adrenaline off them just before your next fight. So what I recommend you do to sort out these alphas is just to use a AoE ability such as Hurricane or Quake, or you can take your focus off Helwyr for a split second and kill him off and then just carry on with the boss fight. Okay, so now moving on to equipment loadout, I'm going to start mid tier, then work my way up to high tier. So starting with melee gear, as top left, I recommend an Obsidian Cape, Amulet of Fury, an Asylum Surgeon Ring, a Quiver, any tier is fine. Then for the weapon, I recommend a Sara Godsword and an Ancient Book, normal or illuminated is fine too. Then for the armor, I recommend Bandos, so helmet, chestplate, gloves, tassets and boots. Then for the range gear, I recommend the same, but change your weapon for a dark bow, and your armor is going to be Armadillo, so helmet, chestplate, gloves, chain skirt and boots. And for your mage gear, I recommend the same again, but change your quiver for a grasping rune pouch or any rune pouch, the weapon for a staff of light, and then your armor is going to be subjugation, so hood, garb, gloves, gown and boots. Moving on to the high tier melee gear, starting top left, I recommend a Kiln Cape, so the melee version, an Amulet of Souls, any version is fine, a Ring of Death and a Quiver, again any tier. For the weapon, I recommend a Nox Sith and a Scripture of Jas. Then for the armor, I recommend trimmed masterwork, so the helm, plate body, plate legs and boots, but swap out the gloves for some Cinderbanes. For the range gear, I recommend similar, so swap out your Kiln Cape for the range version, your weapons, Ascension, Crossbow and the offhand. Then for the armour, I recommend Serenic, so the mask, halberd and chaps, but swap out the boots for fleeting and the gloves again for Cinderbane. And lastly, for the mage gear, I recommend the Kiln Cape, but the mage version. Swap out your quiver for a rune pouch, so I've gone with grasping, the weapon for a Nox staff. Then for your armour, I recommend Virtues, so mask, the top and the legs, but swap out your boots for Hellfire and again your gloves for Cinderbane. Okay, so now moving on to Inventory, starting mid tier again, then working my way up to high tier. So I recommend some Overload Flasks, or if you don't have the Herbal level, then War Master. Some Super Perennial Potions and some Super Restore Flasks. Bring some food along, so I've gone with Shark. Bring some weapon poison, so I've gone with weapon poison +++. A combat familiar and some scrolls, so I've gone with war tortoise. If you've argumented your equipment, then I recommend you bring along some equipment siphons. The highest tier shield you can equip for the resonance ability, so I've gone with a blessed spirit shield. An advanced gold accumulator, this isn't necessary but it just picks up any gold off the floor. An enhanced Excalibur for the health bonus, a sprinkling is just always handy to have on you, and an elven ritual shard which is basically an Excalibur but it restores your prayer instead of your health. Then for the high tier, I recommend similar, so swap out your overloads for some supreme overload flasks. Change your combat familiar for a Ripper Demon, so the pouch and scrolls. And I've just changed the shield to a higher tier one, so I've gone with the Malevolent Kite Shield. And lastly, just a Revolution Bar setup, so depending on the combat style you're going to be using, I recommend these abilities. If you have slightly different abilities, then that's totally fine, just tailor to whatever suits you best. I will leave a little link in the description just so you can have a little look yourself at the abilities, just so you can prepare yourself a little bit more before we get into the fight. And just a little screenshot of the revolution bar that I have set up. So in the top row I have the combat style, so range, mage or melee. The middle bar I have a bunch of deflect curses, soul split. Then on the right side I have the surge, escape and anticipation. But for the reason for showing you this is the bottom row, and that is because of the resonance ability setup. So what you would do is in the first slot you would put your shield, in the second slot you would put the resonance ability, and in the third slot you would put your offhand weapon. And then in the fourth slot I have freedom, and the fifth slot I have crystal mask, but we won't be using the crystal mask in this fight. In a moment I will show you how to use the resonance ability a little bit more close up, so if you're a little bit confused now, then don't worry, I will show you in just a moment. Also, I recommend you keybind these abilities to a number or letter on the keyboard. So I've gone with F1, 2, 3 and 4 only because they are separate and they are just easy to get to, and they are all just in line, so it's just easier to use the abilities. And if you're not using an offhand weapon, then you would put your main hand weapon in the F3 slot just to re-equip your offhand or main hand after equipping your shield. Okay, so before we start the boss fight itself, I'm going to show you a few things like how to get there, reputation and stuff like that. Then after the fight I'm going to just tell you a few tips. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so the first way and probably the longest way of getting to the heart is by teleporting yourself to Al Kharid. You can do this by using the lodestone just here. Then what you want to do is just trail your way through Shanti's Pass gate, and then just follow this path through Bandit's camp, make your way across the bridge and you will end up at the heart. Another way of getting there is if you have the Pharaoh Scepter, you can teleport to Agility Pyramid, run north and you can end up at the heart. Another way is by using the Desert Amulet and walk in southwest and you will end up there as well. You can use the Bandit Camp lodestone, go across the bridge and you'll end up there, or you could use the Menethos lodestone just here, then make your way north through the gate and again cross the bridge and you'll end up there as well. But another quick way of getting to the heart is by using a heart teleport. You can buy these off the Grand Exchange, but you can only use this after you've completed the mini quest Tales of the God Wars. But once you have, you can just click it and you will end up in the middle, just here. So personally, the quickest way of getting to this boss fight is by teleporting to War Retreat. You can find this in the teleport tab, and you just want to make your way down these stairs and you'll be confronted by two portals ahead. Now what you want to do is just reattune one of them so it's Helwyr, but just to bear in mind you can only use this if you've killed the boss at least once, but once you have you can just reattune it, pay the fee, then you can just enter as many times as you want and you'll just be outside the instance just here. Okay, so just a couple more things before we start the boss fight. The first thing is reputation. So now if you speak to Feng in the middle of the heart, you can get yourself a bounty. Now because we are fighting for Helwyr, you want to be clicking the third option, and basically you get assigned a bounty, you killed a bunch of people, and then once you've done that you get reputation points. Then you can use those reputation points in the store and you get certain things unlocked, such as an increased chance of drops during the fight or a reduced kill count before entering the fight. These can just be really useful before starting because you can just get more drops per hour and a quicker kill count before you enter. Okay, so the last thing is a kill count. So we are fighting for Helwyr. There are 4 different generals in the heart, and each one has like a set of stairs leading to the corresponding boss. So we want to go this way and make our way to the portal. Now, if you haven't got any reputation, you will need 40 kill count before you enter. If you've done a few bounties, then you might only need 20, but basically all you do is go down here and then kill all these wolves and archers, as long as they're Syrian minions, and then you just build up your kill count until you reach 40. Then you just enter the barrier and you enter the portal, then you start the boss fight. Okay, so once you have your gear and your inventory set up, it's time to start the boss fight. So for this guide I will be using a melee setup. So what you want to do is grab your gear, drink your potions, activate your ritual shard and your Excalibur, summon your combat familiar and add the necessary. Then you want to activate your Book of Jas if you have one on you. I recommend, if you're starting out new, to use the Vampir's Aura for this. Once you have it all set up, activate your auras as well and you are good to go. Okay, so once you're ready, head through the portal, and the first thing you want to be doing is standing on this mushroom. This is because it's considered a safe spot from any other mushroom around you, and you won't take damage unless the mushroom lands on top of you. So Helwyr will perform 3 auto attacks, and then he will do his first mechanic, Rake and Rend. All you want to do is Resident's ability to take the health instead of damage, or you can just run away. Then he will do 3 more auto attacks, and then he will do his Thrash attack. So you want to use the Debilitate ability to cut the damage in half, or you can run away. Just make sure after you've done either to use the Freedom ability, just to remove the bleed at the end. Then he will perform 3 more auto attacks and then summon 2 wolves. Now you just want to keep focusing on the boss, and then your AoE attack should kill the 2 alphas for you. And then he will just simply rinse and repeat these mechanics. So he will do the mushroom cloud again, then he will do the Rake and Rend, then he will do the Thrash attack, and then he will do the wolf attack. Now if he performs the mushroom attack and it lands on you, you just want to make sure you're far away from the cloud so you don't take damage and be stunned. And if you are, you can use the freedom ability just to escape, or use the surge ability to make sure you're not in the cloud and it will take you to another spot in the arena. Just make sure that the spot the surge is taking you to isn't into another cloud, so you just want to assess where you are, and you can either use the surge ability or the escape, or you can just run out of it just to make sure that you're not in the cloud itself. So we're almost to the end of this boss fight, so I'm going to show you a couple more times just so you get a little bit more of an understanding on what you're getting into. Then I will just tell you a few tips at the end, and then hopefully this will be enough information for you to get your first kills at Helwyr. Now a kill should take you around 1 minute 30, which means your overload should last 3 kills before you have to take another sip. Just make sure you are stocking up your prayer level every kill, just so you're not worrying about that during the fight. And then once you're ready, just prepare yourself for the next fight. So Helwyr will always respawn in the same spot, and as long as you're standing on the mushroom in the middle, you won't take damage from any mushroom around you unless it lands on you itself. Then you just want to wait until it does its first mechanic, use the Resonance ability to siphon the health, then carry on with the fight like normal. Then he will do 3 more auto attacks, and then he will do his Thrash attack, so you want to run away, or in this instance I use the Debilitate ability, and that just basically cut the damage in half. Then after, you want to use the Freedom ability to get rid of the bleed, and then carry on with the fight again. Then he will do 3 more auto attacks. Then he will summon both of the wolves, and all you want to do is keep focusing on Helwyr and let your AoE abilities take care of them, and just keep rinse and repeating this until the boss is dead. Okay, so that's basically everything for the Helwyr fight. Now I'm going to just tell you a few tips that just might help you when you go to fight the boss yourself. So the first tip is, when Helwyr decides to use the Rake and Rend ability, you can run through. You don't have to use the Residence ability. Just be aware that if you run a little bit too far, he will skip the 3 auto attacks and go straight into the Thrash. If you've never used the resonance ability before, I'm going to show you how to do it for this boss. So when Helwyr has deployed the 3 mushroom clouds, he will do 3 auto attacks, then he will raise his paws into the air, and that's when you want to get ready for the resonance ability. So what you want to do, depending on your keybind, you want to press the keybind to equip your shield, then press the keybind to activate the resonance ability. Only once you've gained the health back, you press the keybind to re-equip your weapon, and then you just carry on with the fight like normal, and if you've done it correctly, then you should gain the health back. If you're using the deflective medicurse for this boss fight, which in my opinion is better than soul split, you can use the devotion ability, 3 attacks after the rake and rend, and if you do this just before the Thrash attack, you won't take any damage. Just remember to use the freedom ability after to get rid of your bleed effect. Now there were a couple more tips I wanted to show you, but for some reason the video clips aren't working, so I will just leave them in the description for you. But basically I hope everything in this guide has helped you get your first few kills. Again, I will leave some more tips in the description that I have left out, and if you have any questions, feel free just to give me a message and I will answer them as best I can. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.